A single candle flickers in a vast stone chamber, illuminating the glint of a dragon amulet. This symbol belonged to one of history's most powerful secret societies, the Order of the Dragon, a brotherhood of kings and nobles that secretly steered the fate of Europe. By the end of this journey, you will know the true story behind the legends, separating the dark political reality from the supernatural myths. We will uncover why a king created this order to fight a looming empire, and how its symbol became forever linked to the most famous vampire of all time. What is the one mystery from history you wish you could solve? The year was 1408. In the grand halls of his court, King Sigismund of Hungary, with the support of his queen, Barbara of Celje, did not merely form another knightly brotherhood. He forged a weapon. Its publicly declared enemy was the rising Ottoman Empire, a formidable power whose expansion threatened the very gates of Europe. The Order of the Dragon was born from a spirit of crusade, a sacred vow to defend the cross of Christianity from this looming threat. But its creation was as much about earthly power as it was about heavenly glory. Sigismund was a king with vast ambitions, ruling not only Hungary but also holding the title of King of the Romans, a step from becoming Holy Roman Emperor. He understood that to secure his reign and confront the Ottomans, he needed more than armies. He needed unwavering loyalty. The order became his masterstroke for political consolidation. By inviting the most powerful nobles across Europe to join, he bound them to him with sacred oaths that transcended ordinary feudal agreements. Each new member swore a vow of fidelity not just to a cause, but directly to Sigismund and his heirs, creating a web of influence that stretched deep into the heart of the continent. This was a holy war declared on two fronts, one against an external enemy and another for internal control, all sealed with the symbol of the dragon. To join this elite circle, a noble had to swear a sacred oath under the weight of immense ceremony. He pledged his life and soul to a holy trinity of allegiances: fidelity to King Sigismund and his heirs, unwavering defense of the cross of Christianity, and absolute loyalty to the order itself. This was more than a promise. It was a spiritual and political binding, a vow that placed the order above all other earthly ties. And the symbol of this unbreakable pact was as terrifying as it was profound: the Ouroboros dragon. Picture a great serpent coiled in a perfect circle, forever consuming its own tail. This ancient symbol pulsed with layered meaning for the brotherhood. The dragon itself represented the defeated enemy, the Ottoman threat they had sworn to vanquish. Yet its form, the Ouroboros, spoke of eternity and unbreakable unity, a cycle of loyalty and rebirth with no beginning and no end. This iconic emblem was not hidden away. It was displayed with terrifying pride. Members wore it embroidered in gold and red on long black cloaks, stamped it onto their official seals, and bore it on their shields and armor. Everywhere they went, this symbol marked them, creating a visible, terrifying bond among Europe's most powerful men. Can you envision the psychological power of that image? A duke, a count, a king, all adorned with the same coiled dragon, a constant reminder of their sacred, secret vow. It was a statement of absolute power, a declaration that they were part of something eternal, something far greater than themselves. Among this shadowy elite, one name echoes through history with particular resonance: Vlad II of Wallachia. Upon his initiation, he was granted the right to bear the order's symbol, a privilege he embraced so fully that he adopted the name Dracula, meaning the dragon. This was not merely a title, it was an identity, one that would be passed down to his infamous son, who would become known to the world as Vlad the Impaler and later Dracula. The father's membership in this secret order directly inspired the name of the most legendary vampire in folklore, but Dracula was far from alone in this brotherhood. The roster read like a registry of continental power. King Alfonso V of Aragon, a monarch whose influence stretched across the Mediterranean, swore the same oath. So too did Vytautas, the mighty Grand Duke of Lithuania, and a host of powerful Serbian despots who commanded the volatile Balkans. Membership was not a matter of wealth or minor title. It was an exclusive invitation extended only to sovereigns, their direct heirs, and the most formidable warlords of the age. This strict criteria ensured the order was not just a club for nobles, but a concentrated network of the very individuals who could move armies and shape empires. Think of it as a 15th century superweapon, a political instrument that connected the levers of power across disparate kingdoms, all answering to a single, sacred cause under the banner of the coiled dragon. This sacred oath was the key to a new kind of power, one that operated in the shadows of royal courts. The Order of the Dragon functioned as a clandestine steering committee for Europe, a shadow government whose collective will could orchestrate coronations, direct military campaigns, and broker international treaties. Its most pivotal project was securing the Holy Roman Emperor title for Sigismund himself. This was not a simple coronation. It was a complex political puzzle requiring the consent of powerful electors across the continent. The Order's network provided the solution. Its members, strategically placed in positions of immense influence, leveraged their power to lobby, persuade, and pressure the necessary votes. They turned a fragmented political landscape into a unified front, ensuring Sigismund's ascent to the highest temporal office in Christendom. This was the Order's power made manifest, the ability to crown an emperor from behind a veil of secrecy. That same influence dictated the fate of armies. When a campaign against the Ottoman Empire was launched, it was not merely a king calling his banners. It was the Order activating its web. A noble in Hungary, a duke in Croatia, and a prince in Serbia, all bound by the same dragon oath, could be compelled to coordinate their forces and resources with an efficiency that ordinary alliances could never achieve. This network bound together kingdoms that were often historic rivals, temporarily setting aside local squabbles for the Order's sacred cause. The result was a political and military bloc that stretched from the heart of Western Europe deep into the volatile Balkans, a unified front that could genuinely challenge the Ottoman advance. Can you see the strategic genius? By creating a brotherhood that transcended national borders, Sigismund forged a tool that could shape the very map of Europe, all under the sacred, terrifying symbol of the coiled dragon. But the name Dracula was a double-edged sword. In the Romanian language, the word Dracul also carried the meaning of the devil. This chilling ambiguity would cling to the family line and seep into history. Vlad II's son, known to the world as Vlad III, inherited more than just a title. He inherited a legacy steeped in the Order's sacred war. He became Vlad Dracula, literally the son of the dragon, or perhaps the son of the devil. His entire life was shaped by the conflict the Order was created to fight. As a young prince, he was even sent as a hostage to the Ottoman court, a political pawn to secure his father's loyalty. This experience, living amongst the very enemy his father's brotherhood had sworn to destroy, likely forged the deep-seated resentment and ruthless tactics that would define his reign. When he finally came to power in Wallachia, his war against the Ottomans was not just a political struggle. It was a crusade executed with a ferocity that seemed to embody the Order's most extreme mandates. His infamous method of impaling his enemies was more than mere brutality. It was psychological warfare on a grand scale, designed to terrorize the advancing Ottoman armies and solidify his own power through sheer dread. Could his father's oath to defend the cross at all costs have fueled this relentless crusade? It is a compelling theory that the son sought to fulfill the father's sacred vow with a terrifying literalness. The Order's symbol, the dragon, and its name, Dracul, became permanently fused with his legend. Centuries later, when Irish author Bram Stoker was searching for a name that evoked ancient evil and dread, he discovered the history of Vlad the Impaler. The name Dracula was perfect. In a single, masterful stroke of literary fate, the secretive chivalric order of kings was forever linked to the Prince of Darkness in popular culture. The dragon coiled upon the cloak of a nobleman had transformed into the bat-like creature of the night, a permanent, haunting echo of a forgotten brotherhood's power. Behind the public oaths and dragon-adorned cloaks lay a world of profound secrecy. The true power of the Order of the Dragon was forged not in throne rooms, but in closed chambers where its members performed rituals known only to themselves. We have no surviving minutes from their meetings, no detailed transcript of their ceremonies. The little we know comes from fragments, the echoes of their strict vows that have tantalized historians for centuries. Their gatherings were likely held in remote castles or secluded monastic houses, far from prying eyes. Imagine a great hall, its doors barred from the inside, where the most powerful men in Europe shed their public titles and became brothers of the dragon, bound by a code of conduct that demanded absolute silence. This internal hierarchy was unique, placing King Sigismund and his queen at its apex as perpetual masters, with dukes and princes arranged in ranks below them, a structure designed to mirror the celestial order they believed they served. What did they discuss in these secret sessions? Beyond military strategy and political alliances, many scholars believe they traded in esoteric knowledge. Their symbol, the Ouroboros, is one of the oldest mystical symbols in the world, representing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This suggests an interest in philosophies that reached back to the ancient world. It is tempting to draw a line from their clandestine practices to those of the Knights Templar, another order shrouded in mystery, accused of harboring hidden Gnostic beliefs and ancient secrets. The Dragon's members would have been acutely aware of the Templars' fate, and their own extreme secrecy may have been a direct lesson learned, a way to protect their power from the scrutiny of the church and rival nobles. This wall of silence, however, proved to be a double-edged sword. By revealing nothing, they invited the world to imagine everything. Their vows created a vacuum, and into that vacuum rushed speculation, fear, and legend. Whispers began to circulate that their knowledge was not merely political but supernatural, that their pact was not just with a king but with darker, older forces. The dragon on their cloak was no longer just a symbol of an enemy, but perhaps a sign of what they had become. The ultimate test of this brotherhood came not in shadowy chambers, but on the blood-soaked fields of the Ottoman front. The Order of the Dragon was, at its heart, a military instrument, and its members were expected to lead the charge. Their greatest and most tragic collective effort was the Crusade of Varna in 1444. Here, the dragon's oath was called upon in its fullest fury. King W. Ladislaw III of Poland and Hungary, a member of the order, joined forces with John Hunyadi, the White Knight of Wallachia, who was also deeply connected to the Brotherhood. Their shared identity forged a powerful, coordinated army, one that marched with the singular purpose of driving the Ottomans from Europe. The campaign initially saw success, but it ended in calamity at the Battle of Varna. Against the council of his seasoned commanders, the young King W. Ladislaw led a direct cavalry charge into the heart of the Ottoman lines, a move believed to be fueled by his chivalric vows and the overwhelming pressure to fulfill the order's sacred duty. He was killed on the field, his body lost, and the crusade collapsed. This devastating defeat showcased both the power and the peril of their bond. The shared identity could unite an army, but the weight of their sacred oath could also cloud strategic judgment, leading to a fatal, glorious charge. Yet, the order's influence did not die at Varna. Just a few years later, in 1456, that same network was pivotal in one of Christendom's most celebrated victories, the defense of Belgrade. It was John Hunyadi, a veteran of Varna, who masterminded the city's fortifications and led its desperate defenders. The spirit of the dragon was there, in the coordinated resistance of knights and soldiers who saw themselves as part of a larger, sacred struggle. Their shared identity created an esprit de corps that made them a uniquely formidable and feared opponent for the Ottoman forces. On the battlefield, a knight wearing the coiled dragon was not just fighting for his king or his land, he was fighting for his brothers, for an eternal vow sealed in secrecy. This created a unit that fought with a fanatical cohesion, a terrifying resolve that their enemies could not easily break. How different was the charge of a man who believes he is an instrument of divine will compared to a common soldier. The Order of the Dragon, through its sacred bonds, sought to create an entire army of such men, and for a time, on the walls of Belgrade and the fields of Varna, they very nearly did. Even the most powerful secret society cannot withstand the slow erosion of time. The Order of the Dragon, a brotherhood built on the will of one man and the specific crisis of its era, began to lose its influence with the death of its founder. King Sigismund passed away in 1437, leaving behind a vast but fractured empire and an order that had lost its central sun. Without his commanding presence to hold the web together, the personal loyalties that bound the members began to fray. The empire itself was divided, and the successors to his various titles lacked his unifying vision. The order did not vanish overnight, but its heart had stopped beating, and its power began a long, slow retreat into the shadows. The political landscape of Europe was also shifting in profound ways. The late 15th and 16th centuries saw the steady rise of powerful, centralized monarchies. Nations like France, Spain, and England were consolidating power under strong crowns, building their own professional armies and sophisticated diplomatic corps. For a king in Paris or Madrid, an international chivalric order sworn to a long-dead Hungarian monarch was an antiquated concept. Their loyalty was to the nation-state, not to a secret brotherhood with archaic vows. The very model of power the order represented, a network of personal oaths between feudal lords, was becoming obsolete, replaced by the cold, hard machinery of the modern state. Even the nature of the conflict with the Ottoman Empire evolved, rendering the order's original crusading purpose less relevant. The frontline struggle was increasingly taken up by specialized professional border forces, like the Serbian and Croatian soldiers who guarded the military frontier. Grand pan-European crusades like the one that ended at Varna became rarer and less effective. Warfare became a matter of fortresses, gunpowder, and standing armies, not the chivalric charges of knights bound by a dragon oath. The order's reason for being was fading, its sacred war absorbed into the complex, ongoing geopolitical struggle between empires. By the 16th century, the Order of the Dragon had faded into obscurity, becoming little more than a historical footnote. Its members stopped gathering, its rituals were forgotten, and its iconic symbol was relegated to the seals and family crests of a few noble houses. The dragon amulet was locked away in forgotten treasuries, and the black cloaks with their red and gold embroidery turned to dust in abandoned chests. The brotherhood that had once crowned emperors and directed armies simply ceased to function, its power dissipating like mist under the morning sun. Yet, the disappearance of the order only deepened its mystery, allowing its legend to transform and grow in the fertile soil of history and imagination. The dragon left its mark not only on history but in metal and parchment. While the order itself faded, a few tangible pieces of its existence survived the centuries, scattered like shards of a broken amulet across Europe. The most significant of these is the original founding charter, a document sealed in 1408. This parchment is the order's birth certificate, outlining its sacred vows and the names of its first members. Then there are the seals, small discs of wax or metal stamped with the iconic Ouroboros dragon, used to authenticate the commands of its brothers. A handful of these have been found, often pressed onto old letters or land grants, each one a silent witness to a secret directive sent from one powerful member to another. Medals bearing the dragon symbol also occasionally surface, likely worn by members as a more discreet version of their famous cloak. These known artifacts are precious, but they are only fragments. They hint at a much larger material world that has been lost to time. What became of the Order's central treasury, a chest that must have held immense wealth from dues and spoils of war? Did they commission unique weapons, swords or daggers etched with the coiled serpent for their most esteemed knights? And what of the full ceremonial regalia, the complete set of black cloaks, rings, and scepters used in their most secretive rituals? These items have vanished, fueling the dreams of treasure hunters and the rigorous searches of historians. Modern efforts to locate these lost relics are a form of high-stakes detective work. Researchers scour old castle inventories and monastic records for any mention of dragon-related items. Archaeologists carefully excavate sites associated with key members, hoping to find a hidden cache or a forgotten tomb adorned with the symbol. Every new discovery, no matter how small, is another piece of the puzzle, helping to reconstruct the physical reality of this shadowy brotherhood from the clues it left behind. Though the Order faded into history, its emblem refused to die. The coiled dragon slithered from the secret seals of the Brotherhood into the public heraldry of Europe, etching its memory into stone and fabric for all to see. Long after the last member took his vows, the symbol became a permanent claim to power and prestige. In the region of Transylvania, so closely tied to the Dracula family, the dragon appears repeatedly in the coats of arms of Saxon towns and noble houses. These were not random decorations. Displaying the dragon was a deliberate statement, a way for a family to proclaim its historic connection to that elite inner circle, to suggest that the blood of the dragon still ran in their veins. The symbol served as a silent, powerful resume, telling all who saw it that this lineage had once helped steer the fate of continents. But how do you trace a secret? You follow its public footprints. The most striking architectural example still stands in the Hungarian city of Pécs. High on the wall of a medieval house, a detailed stone relief of the Ouroboros dragon has watched over the streets for centuries. This was not a hidden marking, it was a bold, public declaration, likely commissioned by a member or a descendant to permanently affix their allegiance and power to their property. Can you grasp the psychological impact of that? In an age where few could read, symbols were a universal language. A commoner looking up at that coiled serpent on a lord's wall understood one thing instantly: power resided here. The dragon was no longer just a mystical emblem. It had become a brand of authority, a visible thread connecting the present to a glorious, secretive past. Even the modern flag of Hungary whispers this ancient legacy. While not the Ouroboros itself, the double-barred cross that often appears in Hungarian iconography was closely associated with the Order and its crusading mission. These public displays ensured the dragon's legend would not be forgotten. It transformed from a mark of secret allegiance into a timeless symbol of noble lineage and fearsome power, carved not just into castle walls but into the very identity of a nation. The dragon remained a silent ghost in Europe's history for centuries, its story scattered and forgotten. Then, in the 19th century, a new kind of hunter emerged, armed not with a sword but with a scholar's lens. These pioneering historians began the painstaking work of reassembling the Order's history from fragments. They scoured dusty monastic libraries and deciphered faded chronicles, finding fleeting mentions of the Brotherhood in old legal documents and private letters. One of the key figures in this rediscovery was a Hungarian historian named János Karácsony. His meticulous research in the late 19th and early 20th centuries helped compile the first comprehensive lists of the Order's members, pulling names like Vlad Dracul and King Alfonso from the shadows of time. He cross-referenced land grants, marriage contracts, and diplomatic correspondence, looking for the subtle imprint of the dragon's seal. This was not simple reading, it was a form of high-level detective work. The greatest challenge these scholars faced was the Order's own success in secrecy. Their most vital records, the minutes of their meetings and the details of their rituals, were either destroyed or so well hidden that they have never been found. Generations of wars, fires, and the simple neglect of time had also devoured countless documents. every discovery was a hard-won victory against silence. Imagine a researcher finding a single line in a 500-year-old letter, a casual reference to a meeting of the Dragon Brothers, and realizing it was the only clue for miles. This slow, careful accumulation of evidence transformed the Order of the Dragon from a vague legend into a documented historical force. The work of these dedicated detectives of the past gave the Coiled Serpent its history back, proving that the truth, however fragmented, can be more compelling than any myth. The legends surrounding the Order of the Dragon burn far brighter than the historical embers. In the vacuum left by their secrecy, a forest of wild theories has grown. One of the most persistent myths claims the Order possessed supernatural powers, that their secret rituals were not just oaths of loyalty, but incantations granting them unnatural abilities. The reality is far more human. Their power was not magical but meticulously political, built on a foundation of calculated alliances and strategic marriages. Their symbol, the Ouroboros, was deeply mystical, yes, but it was a symbol of their eternal bond and divine mandate, not a key to unlocking arcane forces. They sought to control the fate of nations, not the elements. Another tantalizing fiction suggests the Brotherhood was the guardian of legendary relics, perhaps even the Holy Grail itself. This romantic idea connects them to the legacy of the Knights Templar, another order shrouded in similar relic hunting lore. Yet there exists not a single shred of evidence in any charter, letter, or inventory that the order ever possessed or sought such an object. Their treasure was not a sacred cup, but the unwavering loyalty of Europe's most powerful men, a resource far more valuable in their quest for earthly dominion. Perhaps the most compelling modern myth is that the Order never truly died. Conspiracy theories whisper of its survival, a shadowy cabal pulling the strings of global events from behind the scenes for centuries. This is a powerful narrative, but it collapses under historical scrutiny. The Order was intrinsically tied to the feudal world of the 15th century. Its influence dissolved with the death of its founder and the rise of centralized nation-states, which had no need for a private club of kings. Its model of power became obsolete. So why do these myths persist with such vigor? The human mind is drawn to mystery, and the Order's deliberate silence is an open invitation to imagination. The truth, however, holds a different kind of power. The genuine story of a king forging a secret weapon to crown an emperor and challenge an empire is a drama of raw political ambition. It is a tale of how sacred vows were wielded to build and break kingdoms, a narrative where the real intrigue, the authentic web of power and loyalty, proves to be more complex and fascinating than any fictionalized version filled with magic and ghosts. The shadow of the Coiled Dragon stretches far beyond its own time, its silhouette falling across the secret societies that would rise in its wake. While no direct lineage connects the Order of the Dragon to groups like the Freemasons or the Rosicrucians, the parallels in their blueprint for power are too striking to ignore. Each of these later fraternities was built upon a similar foundational idea, that a select, enlightened brotherhood operating in secrecy could guide the moral and political destiny of society. This concept of a hidden hand steering civilization was a powerful seed planted in the European consciousness, and the Order was one of its earliest, most potent cultivators. Their structure, with a sovereign and his consort as perpetual masters presiding over a ranked hierarchy of powerful men, established a template. It was a model of centralized, esoteric authority that future organizations would emulate, creating their own intricate systems of degrees and initiations to bind their members. The symbolism also whispers of a connection. The serpent and the dragon are recurring motifs in Masonic and Rosicrucian imagery, often representing wisdom, eternity, and the cyclical nature of life, much like the Ouroboros on the black cloaks of Sigismund's knights. Yet here we must tread carefully, distinguishing historical influence from fascinating coincidence. There is no documented proof that Masonic founders studied the charters of the Order of the Dragon. The shared use of serpentine symbols may simply draw from the same deep well of ancient European and Near Eastern mythology. The true link is not a direct chain of membership, but a shared philosophy of power. Both the order and the societies that followed understood that profound influence could be woven not in the public square, but in the secluded lodge through sacred oaths that transcended national borders and ordinary loyalties. They all believed in the power of a symbol to unite men and a secret to bind them. This legacy transforms the order from a solitary historical event into a pivotal chapter in the long, hidden history of elite brotherhoods. The dragon did not just represent an enemy to be slain. It represented an idea of governance that would captivate the Western mind for centuries, the idea that the true rulers of the world are those you do not see. For a duke sworn to the dragon, the morning sun did not merely signal the start of another day. It illuminated a world of dual allegiances. His public life was a performance of feudal power, beginning with petitions from farmers and disputes between local lords, all requiring a mask of impartial justice. He donned the armor of his rank, the silks and furs that marked him as a ruler. Yet beneath that official exterior, a second, more profound identity pulsed. A simple letter delivered by a trusted courier, sealed not with his family crest but with the distinct wax imprint of the coiled Ouroboros, could instantly reorder his entire world. That small symbol transformed a provincial duke into a soldier of a secret war, his local concerns suddenly secondary to a directive from a brother he might never meet, a king in a distant land. The psychological weight of this double life was immense. In every council meeting, at every feast, he was constantly assessing, listening for information that could serve the order's grander strategy. A casual mention of a rival's troop movements, a rumor of Ottoman scouts along the border, these were not just gossip, they were intelligence to be filed away and reported. This secret knowledge created an invisible barrier between him and the other nobles at his court, a constant, lonely awareness that his ultimate loyalty lay elsewhere. He carried the burden of a vow that could, at any moment, demand he betray a public ally for the order's hidden cause. The strain of maintaining this facade, of forever measuring his words and guarding his expressions, must have been a relentless, exhausting pressure. How do you live an ordinary life when you are bound to an extraordinary, eternal pact, yet that burden was balanced by moments of profound camaraderie? An invitation to a secluded hunting lodge or a remote castle chapel was not a social call, it was a homecoming. In these secured chambers, the mask could finally drop. Here he was not a duke but a brother. The atmosphere in these gatherings was likely a unique blend of solemn ritual and intense fellowship, surrounded by men who shared the same sacred secret, the same fears and ambitions. He could speak freely. They debated grand strategy not as rivals but as partners in a divine enterprise. The shared symbol of the dragon, perhaps displayed on a banner or worn on a discreet ring, forged a bond stronger than blood. These were the only people in the world who truly understood the weight of the oath he carried. They were his confessors, his strategists, his only true peers. In a world riven by petty squabbles and shifting alliances, this brotherhood offered a rare and powerful certainty, a sense of purpose that transcended the borders of their individual lands. They were, in those moments, a single entity, a dragon with many heads but one will. This dual existence culminated on the battlefield where his public and private duties violently merged. Leading his knights into combat against the Ottoman advance, he was fulfilling his feudal obligation to defend his lands. But for the dragon brother, the fight was deeply personal. As he charged, the emblem on his shield was not just a heraldic device, it was a sacred pledge made tangible. Each clash of steel was a direct fulfillment of his vow to defend the cross. The enemy before him was the very existential threat the order was created to destroy. In the heat of battle, the psychological burden may have finally lifted, replaced by a terrifying clarity. He was no longer a man living a lie, but a warrior living his ultimate truth. The chaos of the fight was the reason for his secret life, the moment where all the whispered plans and clandestine meetings were tested in blood and fire. The camaraderie felt in the secluded chamber was now a lifeline on the field, as he fought shoulder to shoulder with other members or their forces, trusting in their shared purpose with an unshakable faith. His daily life was a tightrope walk between two worlds, but in combat those two worlds became one, and every swing of his sword was a prayer to the coiled dragon. Yet within this brotherhood of kings and warlords, a woman stood as its foundational pillar. Queen Barbara of Celli was not merely a royal consort who offered her blessing. She was a co-founder and perpetual mistress of the order, a title she shared with Sigismund for life. Her influence was both profound and practical. As a highly educated and politically astute woman, she operated as a key diplomat and strategist, her network of contacts across European courts providing vital intelligence that shaped the order's decisions. Her presence at the apex of this secret society fundamentally challenges the image of a purely masculine knightly fraternity. Other noblewomen, often the wives and daughters of members, were woven into the order's fabric in essential, though less visible, ways. As patrons, they used their considerable wealth to finance its endeavors, from equipping knights to funding clandestine meetings held on their estates. Within their own households, they became keepers of the order's secrets, safeguarding its symbols and documents, and ensuring the loyalty of the next generation. Their chambers and salons became discreet hubs for communication, where information could be exchanged away from the prying eyes of the all-male court. How much power can reside in a whispered conversation between a queen and a duchess, or in a sealed letter hidden within a noblewoman's embroidery? Their influence was a soft power, exercised through patronage, persuasion, and the meticulous management of social and familial bonds. This nuanced role allowed them to steer the order's destiny from within the very heart of the domestic and social spheres that were traditionally their domain, proving that the dragon's web was spun by both kings and queens. While the dragon's gaze was fixed on the Ottoman threat, danger coiled much closer to home. The order's very existence created a stark divide in the halls of European power, pitting those within the sacred circle against those left in the cold. Ambitious noble families, denied the prestige and influence of membership, viewed the brotherhood not as a holy alliance but as a direct challenge to their own authority. In Hungary, great houses like the Garai and the Sile clans saw their traditional power bases erode as Sigismund funneled favors and lands to his sworn dragon brothers. This was not a simple rivalry, it was a silent war for control of the kingdom's soul, fought with poisoned whispers at court and strategic marriages designed to outflank the order's network. Every grant of a castle or a title to a member was a piece of territory lost to these rivals, fueling a bitter resentment that would simmer for generations. The order's power, so carefully constructed, was constantly undercut by the very feudal system it sought to transcend, as excluded nobles formed counter-alliances to protect their own dwindling influence. This friction extended beyond rival nobles to a clash with one of the most powerful institutions in the world, the papacy. Initially, the Pope had blessed the order's crusading mission. But as Sigismund's influence grew, the Vatican grew wary. The order's sacred oath of fidelity was not to the Church, but directly to a temporal king. This created a parallel power structure that threatened the Pope's own authority to call for crusades and command the loyalty of Christendom's princes. The dragon was becoming a rival shepherd, and the Vatican could not allow its flock to be led by another. Tensions flared over control of military campaigns and the vast tithes collected to fund them. The papacy began to exert its own pressure, supporting cardinals and bishops who were opposed to Sigismund's ambitions, creating a divine counterweight to the order's secular power. This was a battle fought with papal bulls and ecclesiastical intrigue, a cold war within the heart of Christian Europe that proved even a sacred vow could not always placate the throne of St. Peter. Even the commercial arteries of Europe were not safe from the Order's reach. The Hanseatic League, a vast network of merchant guilds that controlled trade from the Baltic to the North Sea, found its interests violently colliding with the Brotherhood's political goals. When the Order's military campaigns disrupted overland trade routes or when Sigismund's policies threatened the League's lucrative monopolies, the merchants pushed back with the only weapon they had: economic warfare. They could embargo ports, freeze assets, and leverage their immense wealth to lobby against the Order's members in foreign courts. This conflict revealed the Order's limitations. Its power was rooted in land and feudal loyalty, while the Hanseatic League commanded the new, fluid power of capital. A dragon amulet meant little to a merchant prince in Lübeck whose coffers could bankroll an army or bankrupt a duke. The Order's battles were therefore a multi-front war, fought not only with sword and shield on the Ottoman frontier, but with whispered rumors in papal corridors, poisoned wine in rival courts, and the silent, crushing power of withheld gold. The greatest threat to their eternal vow was not a single enemy, but the tangled, jealous web of European power itself. The word Dracula carries a linguistic curse within its very syllables. Its origin lies in the Latin word Draco, meaning dragon, a creature of immense power and majesty in the ancient world. Roman legions marched under banners bearing the Draco, a windsock-style standard in the shape of a serpent, its mouth open as if to breathe fire. This was a symbol meant to terrify enemies and inspire awe, a representation of imperial might. When this word traveled and evolved into the Romanian language, it retained that core meaning of dragon. So when Vlad II adopted the name Dracula upon his initiation into the Order, he was proclaiming himself the dragon, a title of fearsome honor and a direct link to his powerful brotherhood. Yet language is a living thing, shaped by culture and belief. In a deeply religious society, the dragon of Scripture was not a noble beast. It was the great serpent of the Book of Revelation, the embodiment of Satan, the ultimate enemy of God and man. Through this powerful Christian lens, the word Dracula began to absorb a second, darker meaning. It became a synonym for the devil. This was not a slow, subtle shift, but a direct and potent association. To call a man Dracula was to call him the dragon, but in the ears of his subjects and his enemies, it could just as easily mean the devil. Can you hear the chilling ambiguity? A title intended to signify strength and divine right now whispered of diabolical allegiance. This linguistic duality proved catastrophic for the legacy of Vlad II and his infamous son. Vlad III, as Dracula, was literally the son of the dragon, but he was also, in the popular imagination, the son of the devil. His own brutal methods of warfare, his forest of impaled victims, seemed to confirm this sinister new interpretation. The public did not see a knight fulfilling a sacred vow, they saw a devil practicing his dark arts. This demonization did not stop with the man, it bled backward, tainting the organization that gave him the name. The Order of the Dragon, founded to defend the cross, now found its symbol irrevocably linked to the Prince of Darkness. The coiled Ouroboros, a mark of eternal unity, was now seen by some as a diabolical serpent. A word chosen for its power and majesty had, through a cruel twist of etymology and perception, become a byword for evil, forever shaping how we remember both a ruthless prince and the secret brotherhood that made him. The stones of these ancient strongholds still whisper the secrets of the dragon. To walk through the ruins of Buda Castle in modern-day Budapest is to stand in the very nerve center of the Order. This was the court of King Sigismund himself, a sprawling palace complex where the dragon's most pivotal strategies were likely forged. Archaeologists excavating the castle grounds have unearthed more than just foundations. They have found the material footprint of this secret power. Among the most telling discoveries are personalized seals. While the Central Order seal is rare, archaeologists have found the personal seals of known members, often discovered in the same administrative quarters of the castle. These small discs of lead or wax stamped with family crests are crucial. They tell us that the men who own them were here conducting business, and their presence in a specific building helps map the shadowy geography of the Order's influence within the royal court. It is one thing to read a name on a charter, it is another to hold the object a duke used to authorize a command sent to a fellow brother. Further evidence comes from the remnants of the castle's chapel and great hall. Fragments of stained glass and intricate stone carvings depicting dragons and other mythical beasts have been found, suggesting a visual language of power that would have been instantly recognizable to the initiated. These were not just decorations, they were silent proclamations of the sacred, secret bond that governed the men who walked those halls. Travel east to the rugged landscape of Wallachia, and you find the stark ruins of princely court in Targov. This was the power base of Vlad Dracul, the dragon himself. The archaeological record here is thinner, scarred by centuries of conflict and rebuilding, but it offers a different kind of truth. Excavations around the famous Chindia Tower, a formidable structure from Vlad's era, have revealed a site designed for defense and intimidation. The discovery of armaments, from crossbow bolts to fragments of cannon, aligns perfectly with the Order's military purpose. But the most compelling finds are numismatic. Coins minted under Vlad Dracul's rule have been discovered in and around the site. On these small, silver pieces, archaeologists have found symbols, including what some interpret as draconic motifs, a dragon or a winged beast. This was the ultimate public broadcast, stamping the symbol of his allegiance onto the very currency of his realm. Every time a merchant or a soldier used one of these coins, they handled a tiny piece of the Order's propaganda, a daily reminder that their voivode was a dragon brother. The strategic location of Targov itself speaks volumes. It was a gateway positioned to control trade routes and guard against invasions from both the north and the south, making it a perfect operational base for a member sworn to defend Christendom's frontier. Other fortresses form a defensive chain across the map. In Serbia, the magnificent Smederevo fortress, a massive stronghold on the Danube, was built by the despot Durad Brankovic, another member of the Order. Its sheer scale and innovative design, with numerous towers and thick walls, reflect the immense resources and shared military knowledge the Brotherhood could mobilize. Archaeological work here has uncovered a complex urban plan within the walls, including churches, palaces, and workshops, indicating it was more than a military outpost. It was a seat of power worthy of a dragon brother. High in the Carpathian Mountains, castles like Bran Castle in Transylvania, often loosely associated with the Dracula myth, were in reality part of a network of fortifications guarding the passes into Wallachia. While no direct archaeological evidence links Bran to the Order's rituals, its strategic position is undeniable. It was one link in a chain of dragon-held strongholds that formed a defensive bulwark, a physical manifestation of the vow its members had sworn. Walking through the cold, stone passages of these castles, you can almost feel the weight of that dual existence, the public duty of a lord and the secret obligation of a brother, both converging within these walls. What was decided in these chambers under the shadow of the coiled dragon truly did shape the destiny of nations, and the stones themselves are the final, silent witnesses. That coiled dragon, born of politics and sacred vows, now breathes fire across our movie screens and video games. In the realm of fiction, the Order of the Dragon is rarely a simple historical brotherhood. It is almost always a cabal of sorcerers or a sinister cult clinging to supernatural power. Films and fantasy novels transform its members from ambitious kings into keepers of dark secrets. Their Ouroboros symbol a mark of allegiance to forces far older than any Ottoman Empire. Video games like the Castlevania series place the Order at the center of cosmic conflicts, depicting it as an ancient, often corrupt institution battling demons. These stories latch onto the Order's genuine secrecy and amplify it 1,000-fold, trading political intrigue for magical artifacts and arcane rituals. Why does this specific order, more than any other medieval knighthood, hold such a powerful grip on our modern imagination? The answer lies in a single, immortal name: Dracula. The Order of the Dragon provides the one thing every great legend needs: a tangible and historically verified origin for its villain. Bram Stoker gave us the vampire count, but history gave him his name. The fact that Vlad the Impaler was literally the son of a dragon knight creates an unbreakable narrative chain. Our fascination with hidden histories finds its perfect vessel in this brotherhood. We are drawn to the idea that the world's true story is written in the shadows, and the Order, with its lost rituals and network of kings, fits that archetype perfectly. It represents a ready-made conspiracy, a blank canvas onto which we can project our deepest fears and most thrilling fantasies about the past. The truth of their political machinations is compelling, but the myth of their dark power is simply irresistible. The shadow of the coiled dragon often fell across a corpse. Behind the sacred vows and public pageantry, the Order of the Dragon moved through a world of silent, sudden violence. The death of King Albert II of Hungary in 1439 stands as one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. He was Sigismund's son-in-law and heir, a man positioned to inherit the Order's leadership and continue its grand design. While campaigning against the Ottomans, he succumbed to dysentery, a common and tragically unremarkable end for a medieval commander, yet the timing was deeply suspicious. Albert died just as he was consolidating power, and his sudden demise threw the kingdom into a succession crisis that directly benefited other powerful factions. Could his death have been a simple twist of fate, or was it a calculated removal by rivals within his own circle, perhaps even by dragon brothers who saw his leadership as a threat to their own ambitions? Historians remain divided. The official records point to natural causes, but the political aftermath was so convenient for so many that the whispers of assassination have never fully faded. This pattern of convenient mortality repeats with other key figures. Consider the fate of Ulrich II of Celje, a powerful count and a member of the Order. His long and bitter feud with another dragon brother, John Hunyadi, was a legendary power struggle that fractured the Brotherhood's unity. Their conflict culminated in a violent confrontation in 1456, where Ulrich was murdered by Hunyadi's men. This was not a battlefield death, but a political assassination that starkly revealed the Order's internal fractures. The sacred vow of brotherhood meant little when set against personal ambition and clashing dynastic interests. How many other sudden demises, officially recorded as illness or accident, were in fact the quiet work of a rival's poisoner or a paid assassin? The Order's greatest strength, its network of powerful, ambitious men, was also its greatest vulnerability. Each member was a potential kingmaker, but also a potential king-killer. The same web that could crown an emperor could just as easily strangle a rival. The dragon's oath demanded loyalty, but it could not extinguish the ancient human drives for power and revenge, creating a permanent, simmering tension between the sacred ideal and the bloody reality. Yet the dragon's legacy did not die with Sigismund's bloodline. Its mantle was inherited by a dynasty that would become synonymous with empire itself, the House of Habsburg. As these masterful strategists absorbed the kingdoms of Central Europe, they also absorbed the potent symbolism of the Order, recognizing its power to legitimize their own soaring ambitions. The Habsburgs positioned themselves as the new, eternal protectors of Christendom, and the dragon's ancient vow provided a perfect historical foundation for their claim. They saw the value in linking their modern empire to the sacred crusade of those 15th-century knights, creating a direct and powerful lineage. This was not merely a sentimental gesture, it was a calculated political move. By invoking the Order of the Dragon, the Habsburgs could frame their endless wars against the Ottoman Empire not as mere territorial expansion, but as the continuation of a holy mission, a destiny written in the blood of dragon knights. How do you make a new empire feel ancient and ordained by God? You connect it to a legend. The Habsburgs became the new standard bearers for the dragon's cause, and their vast multi-ethnic empire became the very bulwark that stood against the East for centuries. The battlefields changed, the weapons evolved, but the essential conflict, the great divide between the Habsburg and Ottoman worlds, was the same struggle the order was founded to fight. The dragon had found a new, far more powerful body in which to live, its symbol now echoing in the halls of the Hofburg Palace in Vienna as clearly as it once had in the castles of Hungary. This strategic inheritance meant the spirit of the secret brotherhood, its unifying purpose and sacred war, was woven directly into the identity of an empire that would shape Europe until the 20th century. This founding charter, sealed in 1408, is far more than a simple declaration of intent. It is a blueprint for absolute loyalty, written in the careful language of power. The opening lines immediately establish a tone of sacred emergency, invoking the Holy Trinity and framing the Order's creation as a direct response to the perfidy of the infidel. But then comes the first curious deviation from other knightly oaths. The members do not just swear to defend the cross, they pledge fidelity specifically to King Sigismund, his Queen Barbara, and their future heirs. This is a personal bond, a dynastic loyalty that supersedes even their duty to the Pope or the Church itself. The Charter legally binds these powerful men not just to a cause, but to a single family's bloodline, making the Order a private army and a political instrument for the House of Luxembourg. Another unusual stipulation lies in the vow of mutual defense. The text explicitly commands members to come to the aid of any brother who is unjustly attacked. This sounds noble, but in practice it created a legal loophole for coordinated aggression. A dragon brother could provoke a conflict with a rival, and the entire network would be obligated to rally to his side, effectively sanctioning a private war under the guise of fraternal protection. One of the most telling phrases is the commitment to a pure and sincere love between the brothers. In the context of 15th century politics, this was not about affection. It was a legal and spiritual requirement for absolute trust and the sharing of intelligence. It forbade the petty squabbles and betrayals that typically fractured noble alliances, demanding a unity of purpose that was almost unheard of. The document also reveals a deep-seated fear of internal decay. It contains strict clauses against negligence and cowardice, outlining severe penalties for any member who failed to answer the call to arms. This was not an idle concern. The founders knew their grand design could be undone not by a powerful enemy, but by the faint hearts and divided loyalties of their own brothers. The Charter, therefore, is a fortress of words built to withstand the corrosion of human ambition and fear. It is a desperate attempt to codify loyalty, to legislate brotherhood, and to forge a weapon of such political perfection that it could withstand the pressures of a fractured world. Could the dragon have merely closed its eyes, waiting for a new age to awaken? The idea that the Order of the Dragon never truly disbanded but simply retreated into deeper shadows is one of the most seductive theories surrounding its legacy. Proponents of this view point to the long history of secret societies in Europe, suggesting the Order's core simply shed its old skin and was reborn within other, more modern fraternities. They argue that its original purpose, to guide the destiny of Christendom, could have easily evolved, transforming from a crusade against the Ottoman Empire into a perpetual, shadowy struggle for global influence. The apparent silence in the historical record after the 16th century is, for them, not proof of dissolution, but the ultimate evidence of its success in concealment. This theory gains traction from the known survival of certain noble bloodlines connected to the Order. If the knowledge and the vows were passed down as a sacred trust within these families, the Brotherhood could have continued its work entirely in secret, its members operating in plain sight as politicians, bankers, and industrialists, their ancient allegiance hidden behind a veil of respectability. It is a romantic and powerful notion, this idea of an unbroken line of guardians secretly steering the ship of state for centuries. Yet for all its appeal, this theory crumbles under the weight of historical scrutiny. There exists not a single piece of verifiable evidence, no correspondence, no financial records, no credible testimony that demonstrates a continuous, organized activity of the Order of the Dragon beyond the Renaissance. Its power was intrinsically tied to a feudal world that no longer exists, a system of personal oaths between kings that became obsolete with the rise of the modern nation-state. So why does this idea persist with such stubborn vitality? The human mind is a pattern-seeking engine, and we are irresistibly drawn to narratives that impose order on the chaos of history. A random tragedy, a surprising election, a sudden economic shift. These events feel less frightening if we can believe they are the work of a hidden, intelligent design, even a malevolent one. The concept of a surviving order satisfies a deep psychological need for a scripted world, a place where nothing happens by accident and a clandestine few hold the reins. It transforms the messy, impersonal forces of history into a personal, and therefore more understandable, story of eternal conflict between light and darkness, between the dragon and its prey. We would rather live in a world ruled by a secret cabal than in one ruled by chance. The dragon's long shadow finally fades from the political map, but its imprint on our imagination remains indelible. From its forging in a time of holy war and existential fear, the Order of the Dragon carved a path through history that was as pragmatic as it was profound. This was no mythic cabal of sorcerers, but a real and ruthless political instrument, a brotherhood of kings that crowned emperors, directed armies, and forged a unified front against an empire. Its true power lay not in magic, but in the sacred, terrifying bonds of its oath, a web of loyalty that briefly but brilliantly consolidated the fate of Europe. Yet, in its deliberate silence, it planted the seeds of its own legend. That same silence allowed its name to be twisted, its symbol to be reinterpreted, and its story to be woven into the fabric of our greatest modern fables. The historical reality of a strategic alliance became the ghost that haunts our castles and our screens, forever linked to the name Dracula. So we are left with a dual legacy, one of genuine historical force and one of endless mythological allure. The coiled Ouroboros dragon endures, a perfect circle with no beginning and no end, just like the mystery that surrounds this secret brotherhood. It symbolizes their vow of eternal unity, the cyclical nature of history, and the unending human fascination with the powers that move in shadow. What part of this epic tale captivated you the most? Was it the political genius of its founding, the dark legacy of the Dracul name, or the sheer endurance of its symbol? Share the mystery that captured your imagination in the comments below.